Redditors who waited until marriage to have sex, what was your wedding night like? We were both exhausted after the reception and agreed it would be better to wait. The next day, at a hotel, we started to go at it when someone from the hotel knocked on the door. We didn't put the do not disturb sign up, so he started to come in. I jumped up, threw on a robe, and intercepted him at the door. He handed me a giant fruit basket that my parents had sent us. So, our first time was interrupted by my parents. We took 167 bobby pins out of my hair, then fell asleep. I had had surgery 3 weeks prior to our wedding to remove a testicular cancer, and was also in my first week of chemo to wipe out the rest of the cancer. We made an effort to have sex after the longest day of my life. I could barely stand during the wedding ceremony. I ended up busting a stitch near my crotch and bleeding everywhere. 7/10 though. Bust the stitch again. 9 years cancer free now, and 2 kids to boot. Yay. Not great, tbh. It had been an extremely long day with the traveling, wedding, reception and everything involved. By the time we got to the hotel, we're exhausted. We made an effort because, hey, we finally can, right, but it didn't go well. The next day after some sleep was much better. Day before we got married he smashed his face on a trampoline and had to get stitches. Morning of the wedding I got my period. Night of wedding, first night together, we just got in bed and held hands and fell asleep lol. Both virgins, and we knew we were both absolutely clueless beyond the what goes into which whole part. We knew not to take ourselves too seriously, and were okay with our ignorance, knowing we'd figure things out along the way together. Afterward, the conversation went, was that good for you? Yeah. What about you? Yeah, that was good for me too. *extendedpause*. Did we even *HAVE**6*, *FOLLOWED by LAUGHTER*. We've been together 20 years now, and we've gotten much better together. I completely undressed myself first, then undressed her, removed the bobby pins from her hair, took a bath, watched her take a bath, and I fell asleep. Awesome. Our ebb had a 2-person tub. All we did was cuddle nude, have sex, relax in the tub, and eat for 5 days straight. I think we put clothes on once to go to a local pizza joint. Packed in most of our food. Premature. A lot of people are saying the sex was underwhelming at first, so they didn't have much more. Duh. My wife and I fixed this by having a lot of sex until we were good at it. Really good. He was pretty nervous, so I asked if he wanted to shower with me. It was a good warm-up that got him to relax and let us both freshen up. After that, we had a really good time. Basically we kind of held hands awkwardly, then we helped each other get undressed. He looked so cute I didn't know what to do, neither did she, so we held each other's private parts and just smiled awkwardly all the more. It's been 9 years since that night. God, I wish I understood where to find the clitoris. Nothing like I expected, better than I'd hoped. So not me, but my mother-in-law is a midwife that owns her own practice. She delivers exclusively Amish and Mennonite babies at home. She has a reoccurring problem that she gets calls about once or twice a year. This problem is usually called into her office by the mother of a recently married young woman who is having trouble conceiving her first baby. My mother-in-law schedules these visits as birds and the bees appointments and will meet with the young couple. As you might have guessed by now, the new married couple in this situation regularly has had little sexual education, which results in my mother-in-law having to explain the difference between vaginal and anal sex. Most times, she said the couple has no problem conceiving a child once they know which hole to use. TLDR, anal sex on your wedding night won't get you pregnant. Pretty great, actually. We did it, went and soaked in a hot tub afterwards, and then we just talked and laughed while I took out the 4,000 bobby pins she had in her hair. The first time was quick, but we were young, so his recovery rate was fairly quick. We ended up having 4 sessions that night. It was really quite lovely. It turns out he had erectile dysfunction, and that was probably one of the reasons he insisted on waiting until marriage. We were both pretty tired, and my partner had experienced some sexual assault before, so there was a lot of anxiety around sex. We just hung out and cuddled naked together and didn't have sex our first night. It was really nice to be together. Slow, patient, and wonderful. I was 26, my wife almost 25. Both completely clueless. My wife was nervous because she didn't know what to expect and says to this day, my brother and my dad always act like it hurts so badly to get hit in the junk. I was afraid of accidentally hurting you. I didn't really know my way around down there. First night, we spent basically 3 hours doing foreplay. All the many things we had never done together. Seeing each other naked, touching each other all over, and kissing. We had done exactly 2 pecks on the lips before our wedding day, so we enjoyed getting used to making out and passionately kissing. Felt each other all over for the first time. It was incredibly slow and easygoing. I got her off, but we didn't actually do any penetration because it was hurting her. And she didn't know what to do with me. We laugh/joke that she orgasmed our first time and every time after, but me as the man didn't get any the first night. Kind of backwards from normal stories. It took us until our 3rd or 4th night to actually do it the normal way. But we had so much fun and enjoyed learning about the other and warming up to it slowly, and neither of us have any regrets. We just took our time and learned our way through the awkward together. It didn't go well. It was too painful for her. It was maybe 6 to 8 weeks before we successfully had sex, and rarely after that. I don't recommend waiting until after the wedding to discover sex is painful for one of the parties. We tried, but just couldn't get into it. We decided to just have a non-sexual marriage and dedicate our love to the Lord. Married for 24 years, and through the miracles of Jesus my wife gave birth to 3 mixed-race sons. You don't need sex in a marriage, just God. That night was quite painful for me. I had to tap out and even bled. Air rhythm way off, but we giggled and enjoyed things anyway. Next morning though, we were quick studies and got things figured out much better. Ended up coming simultaneously for our first real attempt. We had lots of fun continuing to figure things out together for the honeymoon. There was an indescribable immediate bond after sex for the first time too. A mix of vulnerability and total trust, I'd say. No regrets. We watched Star Trek the motion picture and crashed. We were exhausted, and we knew her family was going to try and break in, which they totally did. Try, that is. I changed the locks that morning and didn't want our time ruined. We waited till we were on our honeymoon and could enjoy it, and boy howdy did we. I was hoping for someone to say, Fast and Furious. We couldn't do it the night of the wedding because we are Catholic and she was fertile that night and we didn't want to have a baby right away. So we had to wait 4 days for her to become infertile, by which time we were on our honeymoon. On the actual wedding night, we sat naked together, the first time we saw each other nude, which was *AWESOME*, and then woke up in the morning and got breakfast in bed and played 2-player Cards Against Humanity. We lost to Rando Cardrition. For our actual first time, on our honeymoon, she was *TERRIFIED*, because it had been built up into this big thing, in no small part by me, and she didn't feel adequate to the expectations. Obviously, it was all over in, if memory serves, 2 thrusts, or about 4 seconds. I completely expected this, and had tried to communicate that, but she was still surprised, and quite relieved. We practiced a lot during the rest of the honeymoon. And then the next several years of our marriage. It took her a while to feel okay about sex. It took me a longer while to feel okay about the hard time she had enjoying sex. Eventually, we became okay at 6. We're very happy together and have some lovely kids. 10th anniversary this year. I assume this is pretty much how it works for most people. Nobody starts out great at 6, right? We just started figuring it out at age 24 when we married instead of 20 or whatever age Reddit considers normal, and we figured it out *TOGETHER*. To religious kids getting married, I do strongly recommend having lube on hand for your first time. Not that Astroglide crap either. Spring for some cocoon water based. Also, can't go wrong with wet wipes. It was pretty solid. I was very focused on longevity and lasted too long. And had the wrong size condom. So 9 months later we had a kid. My husband and I waited for religious reasons. Dated for 5 years. Like another commenter, we had done enough making out, groping, dry humping, etc. that when wedding night came we were both ready to go. It was great. Married 11 years, and it's still great. We were super dehydrated and decided to just put it off until the next day, but honestly our sexual compatibility is utterly fantastic. We drive each other wild and sex is fun, and I've caught my wife bragging about our sex life, usually after she's had a few beers. First time we had sex was goofy but fun. We were both new to sex, but we had some great laughs at our own expense. Sex is a great source of joy and intimacy. Remember foreplay, use lube when you need it, wear a condom, laugh at yourself comfortably, make sure your partner has fun, and gets a good orgasm or 3. Don't be afraid to use some toys, if that's your thing, and remember to have safe, consensual fun. Painful, and then he wanted to go hiking the next day, and I had to explain that having my hymen torn made me hurt, and I didn't feel like hiking. I thought the hymen tearing thing was a myth, but I literally felt it, and bled for a few days. Who the hell has energy to have sex on their wedding night? Honestly, it was great. We white-knuckled waiting for penis-penetrating sex until the wedding night because of our religious upbringings, but we'd already spent months making out, groping, and hand jobs. I think we got lucky because it was the perfect amount of build-up over our relationship to where I felt just as bursting with excitement as he was to do it. I remember driving from the reception to our hotel ready to ditch the car and wanting to do it now. Anyway, it ended up being short, and I didn't orgasm that night, but it still felt explosive and special and perfect. It didn't take him long into our honeymoon to figure out how to make it great for both of us, and the rest is history. 7 years later, and thinking about sex with him still makes me horny. Like I said, we got lucky. Not good, my friend. Not good. Was raised in a cult, waited for my wedding night. Had never watched porn or R movies or anything to give me even the first idea what to expect. I was terrified and could barely get hard. Then when it came to it, I busted in 2 seconds. Managed to make her come the next day, but barely. Lol. Exclaimed how big it was, went to sleep, woke up, gave him a hand job. Had sex 3 weeks after the wedding, when we were used to each other. Kept the pressure down, and took time to learn about each other, and what we liked. It was cool. Really effing good. While neither of us had had sex, we had discussed everything beforehand, made sure we were both knowledgeable on issues of consent, anatomy, arousal, and agreed to take it as slow and careful as needed to avoid causing discomfort. While we learned and grew together and now get much more out of it, we both really enjoyed our first night, and have had a very intense and active marriage since. It was awkward yet wonderful, tired from the long day and travel yet eager to enjoy each other. So tired left the room key dangling from the door all night. Next day was spectacular as was rest of the week. 2 19-year-olds like rabbits in the wild, yet it was first time for both. According to a family friend who is a divorce lawyer and her partner, who is a couples counselor, having sex for the first time on the wedding night is almost always a terrible disappointment. It is the first time a couple realizes they are sexually incompatible or perhaps just horny and not in love. For people who wait, sex is the primary reason listed in consoling complaints and in the divorce. I should point out that this is not scientific data and is mostly likely biased by their professions. Oof. It really was the worst sex of our marriage. It was so bad that I had to consult a book on sex mid-act to see what was wrong. We had engaged in plenty of sexual play before marriage, oral, hand stuff, eye humping etc. And it's like we completely forgot that what made that stuff fun was the slow build up. We tried to take it slow, have a shower together, relax a bit, but the expectation to have sex on our wedding night combined with being exhausted from a massive day meant that neither of us were in the right headspace for good sex. I would not recommend waiting. It was the greatest anticlimax of my life. If you want to have sex with your partner, just have sex when the moment feels right, and if you do want to wait, don't bring all that expectation into your wedding night. We had a favorite restaurant, so I ordered lobster taquirt. I had a friend who had my house key because I had been paying him to mow my lawn every week, and I asked him to pick up the dinner and leave it in the fridge. After the wedding and reception, we finally got home, tired and starving. Weirdly, there was a truck in the driveway and the garage door was open. Inside, we found that my mother-in-law had sneaked in and spruced up the rooms with candles and rose petals. There were also boot prints that trod through the rose petals, leaving clods of grass. Then, my friend surprised us by walking in, wearing the dirty boots. "Hey, I wanted to talk to you about mowing your lawn." "Some other time," I said, escorting him out the front door. "Okay, but first, I need to show you something." He ran into the garage. I followed, asking him to just leave. "Hey, you're really dressed up," he said. "I just got married, and my wife and I are home together for the first time, and I need you to leave." "That's great. But first, listen to this, because the mower sounds a little weird lately." "I don't care about the mower." I grabbed his shoulders and led him back to the driveway. After some convincing, I managed to get inside without him following me. My wife and I were still starving, so we called a family member who could pick up the taquirt that my friend had forgotten. After that, my wife and I got naked and fell asleep for a couple hours before we tried sex. My husband and I got married at the beginning of COVID. We didn't get to have a wedding or a honeymoon. I was working at Chick-fil-A at the time. We spent our wedding day moving all my stuff into his house. His parents helped us move everything in. When they finally left, it was 2 o'clock in the morning. I went into the bedroom. He was laying in bed, on his phone. He said, "You want to wait until tomorrow night to do anything?" I said, "I've waited 26 years. That's long enough." We got undressed and started cuddling. When I was wet, I told him he could put it in. I was turned on, but I was so scared. Every time he started to put it in, it hurt like crazy. He went really slowly. I kept asking, "Is it in?" He would show me how far it had gone in, and we would try again. After nearly 2 hours of this struggle, he was having trouble staying hard, and I wasn't exactly looking too sexy as I grimaced. I just told him to push it all the way in fast and hard. It was one of the most painful things I've ever experienced in my life. He took it out, and I finished him off with a hand job. I bled that night, and over the next 3 days. And I bled again every time we had sex for the first 4 months. And we had sex at least once, or twice a week. Over time it got better, and after those first 4 months it didn't hurt at all. Now I really enjoy sex. We finished up around 4 o'clock in the morning. I got 2 hours of sleep, then went to work the next day for my morning shift at Chick-fil-A that started at 6 o'clock. How presumptuous to assume we waited until the night. Morning small ceremony, a few hours before the main reception. The sex itself was not great. I, female, just felt fear, pain, and no pleasure. SOS didn't last long as expected. Thankfully we got better at it, and more thankfully we are a good match sexually. Not a lot of comments. Here's one guess. Mostly religious / strict authoritarian parents instill the no sex before marriage ideology. The overlap between Reddit and highly conservative groups might not be super big. Not great tbh. I had some experience beforehand, but my wife didn't. My wife was really nervous because a friend got it in her head that it would be painful. After a very long day, we got to the hotel, and after a fair bit of foreplay and trying, the power went out. We decided to call it a night. The following months were filled with a lot of crying and it's okays. She was just too tense and stressed to let me get in there for a good 4 months. We tried regularly, and when it didn't happen, we used other means to make things pleasurable. Eventually it happened, and we both really enjoy it. But there's still a lingering tenseness that still makes it hard to get in there 8 years later. Man, it was awesome for me. We waited for religious reasons, but we still discussed everything: consent, taking it slow, lube, etc. It was painful for a bit for my wife, but after a secretary it was a great experience. Communication was absolutely key for us. Humorous. We bought way too many contraceptives thinking we'd have sex every hour, if not more, and would need it all. 6 months later we still had a lot of it. We seriously cleaned out 2 or 3 gas stations of condoms in San Diego. We had no **** clue. It turns out you don't need a few hundred condoms for a 2-week honeymoon, lol.